Have you ever wondered why something as essential as food, the very thing that keeps us alive, can sometimes make people healthier when they stop eating for just a few days? What hidden mechanisms inside the body turn fasting into such a powerful reset, and how does the body adapt when there's no food coming in? And here's the real mystery. If fasting is so effective, why are so many people still confused, worried, or even scared to try it? Hi, I'm Dr. Nana, and today we're diving deep into what actually happens inside your body when you fast. Most people know fasting can help with weight loss, but the truth is, there's far more going on beneath the surface. The problem is all the conflicting information out there. That's why I want to walk you step by step through the changes that happen so you'll understand why missing a few meals can have such a profound impact on your health. In the first 12 hours, not a lot seems to change on the outside. But inside, your body is burning through stored carbohydrates, a form of energy called glycogen. For most, blood glucose drops slightly. However, if those 12 hours happen to be in the early morning, something interesting called the dawn phenomenon may cause glucose to rise instead. That's because your body releases hormones at dawn to prepare you for the day ahead. As glycogen runs lower, your body begins to shift toward burning fat. And when fat is broken down, it produces something called ketones. At this point, ketones are barely detectable, but the process has already started. Now, here's where a lot of confusion begins. People often mix up ketosis with ketoacidosis, but they are worlds apart. Ketoacidosis is a dangerous condition that occurs in type 1 diabetics who have no insulin at all. Glucose skyrockets, ketones soar, and the blood turns acidic. In healthy individuals, ketosis is simply your body's flexible way of switching fuels. This metabolic flexibility is key. When one fuel source runs low, your body naturally shifts to another. And during fasting, energy becomes the central issue. Why? Because without food, the body must generate energy from what it has stored. The only form of usable energy your body runs on is something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. No matter if you eat carbs, fat, or protein, it all ends up as ATP. Think of ATP as tiny springs loaded with energy. Each molecule has 3 phosphate groups attached like compressed springs. When your body needs energy, one phosphate pops off, releasing that stored power. What's left is ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Now here's the mind-blowing part. 1 calorie contains roughly 10 ATP molecules. That's a 1 with 23 zeros. To stay alive, your body requires around 2,300 trillion ATP molecules every second. And remember, you have about 40 trillion cells, each producing trillions of ATP per second. These numbers are astronomical, but they show just how intensely your body works to keep you alive. And because the demand is so high, the body must constantly recycle ATP. As soon as one phosphate pops off, the body rushes to reattach another, using oxygen in the mitochondria through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. That's why breathing is so critical. You're literally fueling the recycling of life's energy currency. The body's goal is to keep nearly all ATP molecules fully loaded. But when energy runs dangerously low, ATP can degrade further, leaving just one phosphate, AMP, or adenosine monophosphate. This is a red alert signal. It screams to the body, we're running out of energy fast. When AMP builds up, it activates an enzyme called AMP kinase. Think of AMP as your body's emergency manager, sending urgent orders to boost energy production, burn stored fuel, and protect survival. And this is only the beginning of what happens when you fast. As we continue, you'll see how the body responds hour by hour, unleashing powerful changes that go far beyond weight loss. In the next section, we'll explore exactly how AMP steps in and why this tiny enzyme could hold the key to unlocking fasting's biggest health benefits. In the last section, we uncovered how fasting flips on AMP, your body's energy manager, pushing you to burn fat when food isn't available. Now, let's go deeper into what happens when your body really starts ramping up fat burning and how this ties into energy, performance, and even brain health. When you're not eating, your body turns to the only significant reserve it has, fat. Almost all of your stored energy sits in fat cells, waiting to be released. To give you a perspective on how incredible this system is, let's consider one of the fastest men alive, Usain Bolt. I was never quite at Bolt's level, but as a former decathlete ranked in the top 10 in the world, I spent years questioning my own body and its limits. I was always asking, how exactly does my body make energy? How quickly can it recharge? How long could I last if ATP production suddenly stopped? Here's what I learned. The body's entire supply of ATP, its cellular energy currency, doesn't last long at all. Every single molecule of ATP you have is recycled between 1,000 and 1,500 times per day. If that recycling process suddenly stopped, you'd only survive about 60 to 90 seconds. That's it. For reference, let's average it at 75 seconds. Without ATP being continuously reloaded, the lights would literally go out in less than 2 minutes. So then I wondered, what about sprinters? The 100-meter dash is arguably the most intense activity the human body can perform. Every muscle fiber fires at maximum intensity. Normally, the average person burns energy at around 90 watts, the baseline for a resting metabolism. But when researchers studied Usain Bolt, they found something staggering. At peak output, he produced 2,619.5 watts. That's 29 times more than the baseline. Now, let's imagine, when the starting gun fires, he doesn't magically have more ATP than before. If his body couldn't instantly upregulate ATP production, he'd have only 2.5 seconds of energy left to live. He wouldn't even make it to the 20-yard line before collapsing. Instead, what actually happens is nothing short of miraculous. Every cell in his body shifts gears, producing ATP at an explosive rate. The human body is that adaptable, that flexible. Now, let's connect this back to fasting. At around 18 hours without food, a point you'd hit if you simply skipped breakfast and lunch, your body is already heavily in fat-burning mode. Ketones, those byproducts of fat metabolism, become measurable. But here's what's fascinating. Ketones aren't just fuel. They're also signaling molecules. They send powerful messages to your body: reduce inflammation, repair DNA, especially in sensitive tissues like the brain and nervous system. It's like flipping on a maintenance program at the cellular level. And the benefits don't stop there. In the brain, two powerful substances begin to rise dramatically: human growth hormone HGH and BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. HGH helps the body repair itself, while BDNF acts like Miracle-Gro for your neurons, stimulating the creation of new connections. Together, they make your brain sharper, stronger, and more resilient. Every time you learn something new, you're creating fresh neural pathways, a process called neurogenesis. But neurogenesis only thrives when HGH and BDNF are plentiful, and fasting helps unlock both. Do you want to boost this process even more? Add exercise. Almost everything fasting triggers: fat burning, HGH, BDNF, and ketone production intensifies with physical activity. Your body and brain both benefit in ways that stack together. By the 18-hour mark, something else begins: the earliest signs of autophagy. This is the body's rejuvenation system, where it starts clearing out old, damaged cellular parts and recycling them. Think of it as spring cleaning on a microscopic level. Autophagy is one of the most powerful processes for slowing aging, improving resilience, and reducing disease risk. And it starts gently at around 18 hours without food. Now, let me ask you, does this still sound like breakfast is the most important meal of the day? For years, culture has painted breakfast in bed as the ultimate sign of care and comfort. But what do we usually put on that tray? Sugary cereals, pastries, toast, orange juice, all sugar on top of sugar on top of sugar. Nearly every item spikes blood glucose and insulin. Comforting? Maybe emotionally, but biologically, it's chaos. At 24 hours without eating, autophagy ramps up further. This is when fasting begins to shift from simply managing energy to actively rejuvenating the body. We'll come back to this powerful process in just a moment, but remember, this is where the true magic of fasting begins to reveal itself. In the next section, we'll break down exactly what happens as autophagy deepens past 24 hours, and why it's considered one of the most exciting anti-aging tools available to us. In the last section, we touched on the early sparks of autophagy, the body's internal cleanup crew. Now, let's explore what happens as this process picks up speed and why it's one of the most fascinating survival tools your body has. Autophagy literally means self-eating. Now, don't picture someone chewing on their arm. That's not what's happening. This is all taking place inside your cells. When you stop eating, no new resources are coming in, so the body learns to be less wasteful. Think of autophagy as a recycling system that becomes more active the longer you fast. Normally, there's always a baseline cleanup going on, but after hours without food, the body recruits more workers for the cleanup crew. Suddenly, instead of a small staff, you've got an army, breaking down old, damaged parts and reusing the pieces. Imagine a carpenter with limited wood supply. He can't afford sloppy work anymore. Every cut is precise, every piece used wisely. That extra attention to detail improves the quality of what's being built. That's exactly what happens during autophagy: less waste, higher efficiency, better repair. Meanwhile, other processes we mentioned earlier like ketone production, growth hormone release, and BDN for the brain are all ramping up. And this is where more nutrient sensors and signaling molecules enter the picture: AMP, TOR, and NAD+. Now, don't let the names overwhelm you. You don't need to memorize them, just understand the big picture. The body isn't dumb. In fact, it's brilliantly intelligent, making adjustments for a reason. When we're well fed, we're in anabolism, a building state. With carbs available, insulin is triggered to shuttle glucose into cells, fueling energy and signaling growth. Insulin tells your body, we have plenty time to build, divide, and store. Cells replicate, proteins and hormones are made, and excess energy gets packed away as fat for later. But insulin isn't the only player. Another nutrient sensor, TOR, mammalian target of rapamycin, also signals growth, especially in response to protein. If insulin is about managing energy, TOR is about building tissue, turning protein into muscle, enzymes, and more. Together, insulin and TOR are like green lights saying, resources are here, go ahead and grow. Inside the mitochondria, the cell's power plants, molecules like NAD+ and NAD play critical roles in energy production through the Krebs cycle. When resources are abundant, NAD levels climb, fueling lots of energy production, while NAD+, which also acts as a signaling molecule, declines. But when food stops coming in, the entire story changes. Instead of anabolism, the body shifts into catabolism, the breakdown state. This is where AMP takes center stage. Remember, when ATP drops down to ADP and even lower to AMP, that AMP acts as a loud alarm. It activates AMP, the enzyme that shouts, we're low on energy, burn fat, conserve resources, recycle what we have. AMP doesn't just trigger fat burning, it also stimulates autophagy, giving the body its marching orders to recycle old parts and keep you alive. And here's the elegant part: AMP directly counteracts TOR. When energy is low, AMP flips the switch off on TOR, halting growth and redirecting focus to survival. So, in essence, AMP boosts autophagy in two ways: first, by signaling recycling directly, and second, by shutting down TOR, the signal that normally suppresses autophagy. It's a beautifully balanced system. When resources are plentiful, you grow. When they're scarce, you repair. Now, what about exercise? Interestingly, exercise is one of the most powerful activators of AMP. That's why many of the benefits of fasting, like fat burning, ketone production, and autophagy, can also be triggered by physical activity. In a way, exercise mimics fasting. Both tell your body, we're using energy faster than we're taking it in, time to adapt, time to grow stronger. So, to sum up, fasting activates autophagy, the cleanup system, while AMP acts as the conductor, ensuring energy is conserved and repairs are made. On the flip side, when food is plentiful, insulin and TOR push the body into building mode. Both states, growth and repair, are essential. But in today's world, where food is almost always available, most people spend far too much time in build mode and not enough in repair. That imbalance is what drives so much chronic disease. In the next section, we'll dive even deeper into autophagy at 24 hours and beyond, exploring how this recycling process can reduce inflammation, protect against aging, and even shield the body from disease. In the last section, we saw how exercise works hand in hand with fasting. Now let's explore how these two strategies complement each other and why balance between feast and famine is the key to long-term health. Exercise and fasting both activate powerful switches inside the body, but in different ways. Fasting lowers insulin and turns on AMP, pushing the body into repair and fat burning. Exercise, meanwhile, is the primary stimulus for your brain, something fasting alone cannot fully provide. Exercise also shuts down TOR, which reinforces autophagy, the cleanup and recycling process we talked about earlier. That's why combining fasting and exercise is so powerful. Each strengthens the other. Now, let's revisit another molecule, NAD+. Earlier, we saw how, in a well-fed state, resources get converted into NAD, which then fuels energy production. But when resources are low, that conversion slows. NAD plus begins to build up like water backing up in a bottleneck. And here's the fascinating part. NAD plus itself becomes a signal. It activates a group of genes called sirtuins. These genes have been studied extensively, and they are strongly linked to longevity. Think of them as your body's survival genes, quiet most of the time, but when turned on, they promote resilience, repair, and even life extension. So fasting isn't just about burning fat, it's about flipping genetic switches that help your body thrive. But can everyone fast? Is it safe for all? The honest answer is, it depends. Like most things in health, it's about balance. Our biology was built for cycles of feast and famine. Sometimes we take in more energy and store it. Other times, we go without food, burning those stored reserves. The modern problem is that most people live almost entirely in the feast state, eating 3 or more meals a day, snacking in between, and never giving the body a break. If you're overweight or dealing with insulin resistance, you're stuck on the feast side of the spectrum. For you, fasting is the reset button you need. That might mean fewer meals or stretching the time between them to finally break the cycle of constant feeding. On the other hand, if you're severely undernourished or already extremely thin, fasting won't serve you the same way. You have fewer reserves to draw from, so your fasting window must be smaller, or in some cases avoided altogether. And let's clear something up. True starvation is not what we're talking about here. Starvation is when you have no choice, no resources, and no food at all for long stretches. That's damaging. But when you casually say, "I'm starving," 3 hours after breakfast, let's be honest, that's not starvation. That's an imbalance you've trained into your body by constantly feeding it carbohydrates. You've taught it to expect glucose every few hours, so when it's missing, your system panics. This is where fasting and keto often get misunderstood. Some critics argue that eating low carb or fasting promotes eating disorders. They confuse it with conditions like anorexia or bulimia, but these are very different. Anorexia is psychological, a distorted self-image where someone looks in the mirror and sees fat even when they're dangerously thin. That's a mental health issue, not a metabolic one. Fasting, in contrast, is designed to correct metabolic dysfunction. By lowering insulin and retraining your body to burn fat, fasting can actually restore balance. Many people report feeling calmer, more focused, and less dependent on food once they've adjusted. If anything, being tied to 6 meals a day is closer to disordered eating. Think about it. If missing one meal makes you lightheaded, irritable, and unable to focus, your body isn't stable. You're not metabolically flexible. That's the real problem, not fasting. So, here's my challenge to you. If you've been following my principles for a few months, eating fewer meals, lowering carbs, practicing fasting, ask yourself honestly, do you feel more or less like you have an eating disorder? And if you're willing, share your experience in the comments. Not for me, but for the people who are still unsure, still skeptical, and still worried. Sometimes hearing real stories makes all the difference. By the time you reach 48 hours of fasting, even deeper changes begin to unfold. Growth hormone climbs higher, fat burning intensifies, and autophagy shifts into a stronger gear. And that's exactly what we'll uncover next. At the 48-hour mark of fasting, the body really shifts into another gear. Growth hormone has increased by nearly 5-fold, about 500% higher than baseline. Alongside that, ketones continue to rise, BDNF is boosted, and the pace of autophagy, the cellular cleanup crew, keeps accelerating. Now, it's important to remember that ketones are far more than just fuel. They're also powerful signaling molecules. These molecules help stimulate both growth hormone and BDNF, amplifying their effects on repair and regeneration, especially in the brain and nervous system. There's another hormone in play here too, ghrelin. You may have heard it called the hunger hormone. When you haven't eaten for a while, ghrelin rises and basically nudges you, hey, you haven't eaten, maybe it's time to find food. The interesting part is that ghrelin does more than trigger hunger. It also helps stimulate growth hormone and BDNF. But unlike ketones, which steadily increase during fasting, ghrelin comes in short waves. It's like a reminder knock on the door. If you ignore it, maybe sip some tea, or go for a walk, it fades away within minutes. Ghrelin doesn't keep nagging forever. It simply returns later, almost as if the body says, "No food now? Fine, I'll check again in a few hours." At this point, around 48 hours, the benefits become more obvious. Brain repair is strengthened. Longevity pathways activate. Wound healing improves. Even cardiovascular health sees noticeable support. And because insulin is now at its lowest point since fasting began, inflammation is reduced. With continued fasting, insulin resistance is gradually reversed, meaning the core problems of metabolic syndrome like high blood pressure, belly fat, and increased cardiovascular risk start moving in the right direction. By 72 hours, things deepen. Autophagy kicks into a much higher gear. The body becomes very selective, dismantling damaged proteins, broken cell parts, and low-quality structures. It's like your system develops higher standards. This piece isn't good enough. Let's recycle it and rebuild something stronger. And here's where something remarkable happens. At 72 hours, we begin to see hematopoietic stem cell regeneration. The word may sound intimidating, but it simply means that stem cells, those original baby cells that can become other cell types, are being rejuvenated, particularly the ones that produce blood and immune cells. In other words, fasting at this stage helps renew your immune system. Why does that matter? Because stem cells are essential for resilience and repair. And one of the most striking findings is how fasting can protect the body during chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is, in essence, a poison given with the hope that it harms cancer cells more than it harms normal cells. But the side effect is often severe damage to the immune system and stem cells. Research has shown that patients who fast during chemotherapy maintain much stronger immune function. The fasting helps offset some of the toxic effects, giving their bodies a better chance to recover. It doesn't mean fasting eliminates the hardship of chemo, but it can act like a protective shield, supporting white blood cell regeneration when the body needs it most. If we push further, into 1-2 hours or 5 days, nothing dramatically new begins, but everything we've discussed continues to build. Growth hormone, ketones, BDN, autophagy, they either stabilize at high levels or continue to climb. Fat burning is deeper. Repair processes are stronger. Inflammation remains low. And here's another way to think of it. Fasting longer gives your body time. Time to break old habits. Time to shift momentum. Imagine your metabolic health as a massive ship, a supertanker. You can't turn it quickly, but give it time, and it will change course. The longer fast allows old cellular set points to fade and new, healthier patterns to establish themselves. So by the 5th day, whether your goal is fat loss, deeper cellular repair, or even disease reversal, fasting provides the space your body needs to reset. It's not magic, and it doesn't happen overnight, but the effects are profound once you allow the process to unfold. And as we move forward, we'll take a closer look at what happens beyond this stage, and how these changes translate into long-term health benefits you can feel and measure. So let's bring everything together. By this point, you've seen how fasting reshapes the body's inner world. One of the most exciting things is how fasting helps reset set points. If your weight has a tendency to bounce back no matter what diet you try, fasting gives your body a chance to forget the old weight and create a new, healthier baseline. It's like your body finally gets permission to rewrite its memory. Now, people often ask me, Dr. Nana, when exactly does it start? Just tell me the exact hour when fasting begins to work. I wish it were that simple. The truth is, it doesn't flip on like a light switch. Everything is happening all the time, just at different intensities. Some processes are always running quietly in the background, but fasting pushes them louder, faster, stronger. Take glucose, for example. It doesn't vanish overnight. Instead, it slowly decreases over several days until it stabilizes at a safe baseline. Blood glucose must always exist, it's essential. The same goes for insulin. You'll never eliminate insulin. Your body needs it to survive. But with fasting, insulin steadily drops to lower and healthier levels, creating space for healing. Growth hormone follows a different rhythm. Normally, it hums quietly at low levels. But as fasting continues, growth hormone rises by 48 hours. It's already 500% higher than usual. From there, it continues climbing gradually, until it reaches a plateau where your body finds a new balance. Ketones and autophagy, though, tell another story. Before 12 hours of fasting, they're almost non-existent, barely flickering on the radar. By 18 hours, they gain momentum, and by 24 hours, they're working hard in the background. Then at 48 hours, they surge dramatically. And once you cross into 72 hours, that's when the profound changes happen: stem cell renewal, immune system rejuvenation, and deep cellular cleanup. Now think about this. Most people never experience these benefits. Why? Because eating 3 or more meals a day means they rarely pass 12 hours without food. They live in a constant state of feeding, never giving their bodies a chance to cross the threshold where real healing begins. That means they never truly feel the boost of ketones, the surge of growth hormone, or the life-saving power of autophagy. But imagine something as simple as skipping breakfast and finishing dinner earlier in the evening. That small change can push you to 18 hours of fasting. And suddenly, you've crossed into the zone where ketones rise, growth hormone increases, and autophagy finally switches on. By 24 hours, the benefits multiply. By 48 hours, they explode. And at 72 hours, you're experiencing the most dramatic shifts, the kind that help reverse disease and even rejuvenate stem cells. So what's realistic for most people? Based on everything I've studied and lived, here's what I believe. For the majority, the sweet spot lies between 18 and 48 hours, with the 72-hour fast reserved for those aiming for deeper repair. If you've already achieved most of your weight and health goals, an 18-hour daily fast can easily become a lifestyle. That's what I do myself, not because I'm chasing weight loss anymore, but because it's simply convenient. I eat twice a day, usually 6 to 8 hours apart, and those meals are rich, satisfying, and nourishing. Outside that window, I don't deal with hunger, cravings, or unstable blood sugar. Life feels balanced. But if you're struggling to lose weight or to lower insulin, you may need to step it up. One meal a day is a powerful option. And if weight is really stubborn, you can even try eating just once every other day. It may sound extreme, but many find it surprisingly sustainable. Think of it this way. You could choose to skip eating on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That rhythm can be kept up for months, even a year or more, until you've finally reached your goals. And what happens once you get there? Once you've reversed insulin resistance, dropped the extra weight, and maybe even said goodbye to diabetes medications, then you can shift back into a gentler rhythm. Experiment with 24-hour fasts, 18-hour fasts, or even 16-hour windows. You'll discover what feels natural for your body long term. The 72-hour fast, where does that fit in? For me, it's one of the most powerful tools available. Not something you do all the time, but something you schedule occasionally for maintenance, for disease prevention, or to reset your body's pathways. Even if you're healthy, a 3 to 5 day fast once or twice a year can be incredibly valuable. Some do it 3 or 4 times if they're up for it. But you don't have to. It's about finding the rhythm that fits your life. If you're dealing with serious challenges like severe insulin resistance, stubborn obesity, or even cancer, then 72-hour fasts can become part of a more intensive approach. Some people use them every couple of weeks, carefully balanced with proper nutrition in between. And when chemotherapy is involved, fasting can provide an additional layer of protection for your immune system, as we discussed earlier. The key is balance. Always balance. Fasting is powerful, but it must be weighed against getting the nutrients your body needs. So where does this leave us? Here's the truth. Fasting isn't just about skipping meals. It's about unlocking your body's ability to heal, reset, and thrive. It's about giving your system a chance to breathe. You've seen how insulin drops, how inflammation calms, how growth hormone and ketones rise, and how autophagy clears out the old to make room for the new. You've seen how fasting helps you forget unhealthy set points and establish new, healthier ones. And you've seen how something as simple as adjusting when you eat can ripple through every part of your health. And here's what inspires me most. Your body was built for this. These mechanisms aren't tricks, they're ancient survival tools coded into your very cells. All you're doing with fasting is tapping back into the wisdom of your own biology. So, if this video opened your eyes, imagine what's ahead. We've only scratched the surface of what your body can do when you understand it, when you respect its rhythms, and when you give it the chance to reset. If you're serious about mastering your health, about living longer, stronger, and with more vitality than you thought possible, this is just the beginning. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value here, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to my channel Senior Health Boost, and hit that notification bell. That way, you'll never miss another life-changing, possibly even life-saving video. Together, let's keep building a healthier future, one choice, one fast, and one day at a time.